What do you do with old Macs and floppy disks in 2024? I think you'd be surprised. As technology advances, lots of old tech gets left behind. And to be what? Garbage, most likely? Or it's collecting dust at the bottom of your junk drawer? And let's be real, guys, you're never gonna use that shit again. But people have taken some of that old tech and not restored it, but repurposed it. The difference being that restoring involves making the thing be the functioning thing again, and repurposing makes the thing something else entirely. So today we'll be looking at some old tech that people turned into some really cool functional items. I've put these in order from cheapest to most expensive, and all the links to these creators will be in the description if you're interested in grabbing anything. Just be wary that the prices can be shocking, but just remember that people completely crafted these things out of something it's not supposed to be, sometimes from the ground up, and did it with their bare hands. It's honestly all pretty insane, so they can price it at whatever they want to price it at. And while we've looked at a lot of repurposed consoles in the past with my weird handheld collection, this video is going to center around some that are a little less gaming focused, with the first up being floppy disks. This seems like a pretty big one. Like, I remember just at the little desk we had in my childhood home, there being easily like 100 floppy disks, and those things really don't have a use these days. I mean, I guess unless you're trying to continue running some supercomputer from the 80s, and we've done this sort of comparison in the past, but this floppy disk right here is 1.44 megabytes, and this hard drive is 2 terabytes. So yeah, pretty useless. Not to mention the fact that it would be really hard to run or access things on here anyway, as modern day computers don't really support the good old floppy. So what can you do with a floppy disk in 2024? Well, you can make it into a notepad. I'm not really sure how I came across this, but if you want one for yourself, you can grab it on Etsy. And I mean, as silly as it might seem, this somehow makes total sense to me. Like, I can even imagine an extreme version of this where you take a bunch of these and glue them together to make a big notebook. I don't know, I think that would be pretty cool. But this one really gets the gears turning, because it's just so simple. Like, it makes me wonder what kind of oversights we're making on some old tech today, that if we just drilled a few holes in it, we could still use it today. But the main thing I wonder, what was actually on here? Now, I know we said we weren't going to focus on gaming, but I couldn't leave you hanging with nothing gaming related, so check out these NES greeting cards that you can also have made on Etsy. Now, before anyone comments it, these are reproduction shells, but no one is really stopping you from doing this to an NES game that doesn't work anymore. But essentially, this company on Etsy makes it easy to have an NES cartridge customized, though no, there is no game inside, but we'll get to that in a sec. But my wife got me this for our 4-year anniversary, and I just thought the idea was so genius, so kudos to my wife and to the Etsy seller for thinking of this. But find your occasion, choose from a ton of pre-made templates, and give them the specifics to customize it. And they can also customize the little sprites that are on the label too. Though my wife opted for the classic Mario and Peach, since we went as Mario and Peach for Halloween the year we met. So obviously this is how our label turned out, which looks just like those classic NES labels. But if you notice this tab at the bottom, if you pull that out, that's the customized message from your loved one. Like I said, this is another great repurposing idea, and definitely an idea to keep in mind for that retro gamer in your life. And it even comes with a little 3D printed stand to display it. Okay, this next one is pretty wild and kind of sparked the whole idea for this video. A while back, a guy named Jake reached out to me to tell me about his Mac-quarium. Yes, a Mac-quarium. That is just as it sounds, an aquarium made from a Mac. And as crazy as that sounds, Jake went on to create a ton more Mac-based experiments, and he sent me what I think is the coolest of his creations, his iMac G4 lamp. This thing is absolutely wild, and really a sight to see. Like, I obviously knew what was coming my way, but seeing it in person really is something else. And the iMac G4 might be my favorite Apple design ever. But this whole process starts by obviously tearing down the iMac, removing the unnecessary components, making room for the new components, while also keeping the outer parts of the G4 looking as pristine as possible. Which that is something I really have to give him credit for. The original parts of the iMac just look so pristine. No yellowing of any of the plastic, and all of the metal is polished to perfection. Now, I had a bit of a brain fart when I I pulled the thing out of the box for the first time and saw the exposed motherboard at the bottom, and the first thought that came into my head was, shouldn't that be covered? Thinking this is one of the working boards for the lamp as a whole, only for me to come to grips with myself and realize that lamps don't need a motherboard to function. So yes, the exposed motherboard is an artistic choice, not a part of the electrical. La duh. But breaking this down a bit more, like we said, the very bottom shows the motherboard that was in the G4, and there is actually a USB port down here too, so you can charge up as well. But this bottom piece is really interesting because it's actually flipped upside down compared to how it was used on the original iMac G4. So this metal piece that you are seeing right here is actually what would have been sitting on your desk. But here Jake polished this off while also adding a hole for the arm, which, speaking of, also looks so clean. Honestly, amazing. And then for the lampshade, he used the actual dome piece that housed all the internals for the iMac, which is just genius. And even though the iMac isn't like an antique, he still added these little touches like this pull chain to give it that retro futurist design. Like I said, I have been obsessed with just looking at this thing since playing around with it, and I added a Philips Hue bulb to really let the futuristic look and customization fly. So while Jake does sell these, it is also hard to come across these iMacs that are in good enough condition and for a fair enough price. So while you can pop on over to his website and message him to see if there's any available, he's also made available a kit so that you can do it yourself with your own iMac, because I know you have an old iMac laying around. Definitely check out all the super unique creations Jake has made over on his website. He also sent me this little clock that he made out of an eMac disc tray cover. Seriously, everything he makes just super cool. Okay, the last one we are going to look at today, I am super excited about because I've been following this creator and this project for a really long time. This is the iBook iPad case from Billy at Skip Retro. A real MacBook G3 converted into a full keyboard setup for your iPad. This is an absolutely insane build, completely gutting the iBook's motherboard, keyboard, and display, but now adding back in various accessories to turn this whole thing into a real working iPad keyboard case. And I do want to point out that this one is actually from Billy's personal collection, which features the various different colors of the iBook when it was released. But starting to look at these editions with the Bluetooth keyboard and trackpad, obviously connecting right to your iPad to give it that laptop feel right away. And you can't just glue a Bluetooth keyboard in here and call it a day. So he designed and 3D printed some parts to give it a more seamless look. And then has it all wired so that you can recharge the keyboard using a USB-C port on the side. And another fun feature right by the keyboard is the addition of an Apple Watch charger, really making this thing like the anti-MacBook MacBook if you're a die-hard iPad fan. And then next to the watch charger is a feature I think I'll share last. And of course, how are you going to connect the iPad to the MacBook? Well, Billy answered that by, again, 3D printing some filler components, and by adding magnets. And these magnets you'll have to keep adhered to the back of your iPad so that it aligns properly in the MacBook every time. And of course, next to your iPad's charging port is another USB-C port that is, again, rewired to charge it from a USB-C port on the side. And that about does it. Oh wait, remember that big power button next to the keyboard? We'll tap that and he made it so that the Apple logo lights up. Definitely giving old Apple vibes with a modern twist. Be sure to check out these MacBooks for sale on Billy's website, Skip Retro, and also check out his content on TikTok too. But seriously, those last two might be some of the coolest old tech that I've seen repurposed, though it is really awesome to see what all these creators come up with. And you know, this channel and these creations have a lot in common, trying to put a spin on the way we used to look at something. Everything I do on here involves some sort of old aspect of pop culture and breaking it down or seeing how it can bring joy into our lives today. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please support these creators by using the links in the description, and support the channel by subscribing, liking, and becoming a member. And as always, thanks for watching. If you made it to the end of the video, congrats. I usually put a little gag at the end of the video, but I didn't really have one for this, so I just want to say thank you again for watching. Again, it's so crazy that I get to make these videos for you guys, and we're actually well on our way to 20,000 subscribers, which is just crazy. But again, thank you. See you in the next one.